Welcome to WFPC Podcasting, your local source for the heart and history of Pike County, Indiana. And now, here's your host, Randy Harris.
Indianapolis Power and Light has been an integral part of Pike County for 60 years. Our guests today have been a part of that transition for a long time. Gary Leavitt was one of the early arrivals, and Rodger Whann came just a few years later.
This is Kyle Hathaway with Hathaway Excavating and Rock Yard. We have the equipment and crew to take care of your earth moving needs, septic installs, and digging out what you need dug out. We also deliver rock, and we maintain and pump septics. We're just a couple miles away. Call Hathaway Excavating at 812-582-2646.
WFPC is sponsored by the Dustin Schnare Agency for Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance. Dustin and his staff, including Tyler Dillon, are right here in Pike County. It's face-to-face, and they guide you through the process of insurance. Whether it's home, auto, farm, commercial, or life, the Dustin Schnare Agency is here to help. Call the Dustin Schnare Agency at 812-766-1117 or stop in at the new office on State Road 61 at Petersburg. This program is sponsored in part by Dr. Clint Schultz with Schultz Eye Care in Petersburg. Schultz Eye Care offers comprehensive dilated eye exams, contact exams, a huge selection of name brand frames for glasses and sunglasses, and if you buy a pair, get a second pair at 50% off and a year's supply of contacts at 25% off. Schultz Eye Care is an independent office and are open through the week except Tuesday afternoon. The phone number is 812-354-9400. So, take me back before you got here. Take me back and tell us the providence of what brought Indianapolis Power and Light to Pike County, Indiana. Coal mine?
Coal company.
River? Well,
they had to be on the river, but my dad worked for Peabody Coal Company. And he knew that IPL owned this property when I got out of college, and that's why I'm here. He said, you better interview with IPL because they're going to build a power plant in Petersburg. He knew it in 58.
Wow. And you were still at Rose Poly?
Yeah, I graduated in 58 from Rose Poly.
Okay. So...
It was Rose Polytechnic when I started, but it's Rose Hallman when I graduated.
All right. So you were from Lyons, Indiana?
Yes.
And you got this job with IPL. And when did they send you here?
In 66.
So you were one of the very early hires.
Well, yeah, I was the second family moved to Petersburg.
First one being Bob Riedel?
Bob Riedel came in September 65, and I came in June 2nd, 66. And then that summer we brought about 20 families down here.
Wow. That's a pretty big influx at one time. Did they have any homes to live in?
No, had a tough time finding them.
And you were the head engineer, right? What was your title?
When I came down here, I was supervisor of maintenance over mechanical and electrical maintenance on units 1 and 2, and then when they started building unit 3, I transferred to the construction department.
Where did they put you before here?
I was at Martinsville, Pritchard plant.
Okay. And Rodger, your story with IPL goes further back than Petersburg. You were an IPL kid.
Yeah, mine goes clear back to early 1940s. I'm not that old, but my parents both worked for Indianapolis Power and Light early 40s. And when they got married, my mother had to quit, and I was born in 47.
Because of a nepotism rule.
Yeah.
I never knew that your mother worked for him before she came.
Yes.
I wondered how she got back on so quick when your dad died.
Yeah, that's where they met, Indianapolis Power and Light.
I knew both his parents. His dad used to do work for me when I was in Martinsville. his dad was in charge of building and grounds, and if we had to have any mowing done around the plant site, around pumps out in the fields, I had to get his dad to come down. And his dad was real good buddies with our superintendent, Jim Lohr. He got along with him better than I did.
So how did they pick Bob Riedel to handle this plant?
Well, he was assistant superintendent of Martinsville before they moved up. He moved him up to Stout Plant to do something, and then he came here.
He was the right guy for the job, wasn't he?
Oh yeah.
He was the right guy for a new power plant and a big power plant. See, this was the biggest power plant that Indianapolis Power and Light had ever had. It was, Unit 1 was over 2 times the size of their biggest unit they already had. They only had 100 megawatts were their biggest units,
Yeah.
and they built a 220 megawatt.
Well, see, Rita was like assistant plant superintendent at Martinsville, or I think he's really plant engineer.
Yeah.
And then they took him up to Indianapolis to do something at Stout Plant for some more training, I think. And then he started hiring people for Petersburg from an office up there.
And then 1965, they move him down here, getting ready for this plant.
He came down here in '65. I think September of '65.
And then you came in early '66.
June of '66.
And then you've got 20 other. You bring Marge and the kids, and then you've got 20 other families on your heels.
When we moved down here, Marge was pregnant with her son Mike, and we had 2 girls.
Wow. So IP&L is synonymous with Petersburg, and it's always been one of our biggest employers. Great jobs. It worked in harmony with our coal industry, and just talk us through that experience. I know some of the early people that I knew were, Rex Hoppus, Ray Hedden. Were those part of that first group?
I hired Ray Hedden the first summer I was here.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Rex was our first plant engineer. Is that right, Gary?
Rex came down in that summer of '66 sometime. I don't remember exactly when, but he
was one of those first 20
He came
families.
down and lived in Tower Apartments.
Harry Darts.
And then he met Kathy, his wife, Kathy Kicksmiller,
Right.
and they got married.
Right. What did you think when you came to Pike County?
I was kind of familiar with the area by growing up in Greene County, and I knew about the mines down here. My dad he'd never worked in this area, but he'd come down here and picketed a couple of mines to try to get them unionized, so he knew where all the non-union mines were. And then he knew some people at Peabody, because he worked for a company called Mommy Collie's in Linton, Indiana, and Peabody bought them. And at one time he was the youngest dragline operator and had the most seniority. So that's how long he'd been with them. He went with them when I was about 2 years old, I think.
Wow. So let's enter you into Pike County. You grew up.
Okay,
both of your
I grew up in
parents.
Indianapolis. Went to Purdue, and when I graduated, I'd worked summers. Let me back up. I worked summers after I got out of high school for Indianapolis Power and Light, and I worked in the steam heat division, and to help pay my way through school. And then when I graduated in 1970, I went down and got a job with them. I hired on, as an engineer, and I hired into at that time it was called electric production, not power production like it later on. So I hired into electric production, and at that time when you hired in, they called it a tour to get familiar with the company. You went to all the different places, even though it wasn't in electric production. You went to all the different facets, so you kind of knew what was going on. And then he finally went to all the power plants. And I came down here. They sent me down here. It was late September of '70. It was the first year overhaul on Petersburg 2. They call it the warranty overhaul. So I came down here and I lived in the town motel for about 8 weeks, room 1. And so I came down, I spent that 8 weeks, and I met Gary and everything. Well, then I had to go back and finish my tour. Well, then when I got that finished, they said, well, where would you think you'd like to go? I said, well, I know where I'd like to go. I'd like to go to Petersburg. You want to go to Petersburg? Yeah, I want to go to Petersburg. That was the new Plymouth. I liked everybody down here, and I had kind of an alternative motive. My dad grew up over in Madison, Indiana, and at that time, Indianapolis Power and Light owned some ground in Switzerland County, and it was on the books at a future date to build a power plant down there on the Ohio River in Switzerland County.
I thought I was going to go to Madison for that new power plant instead of going over in construction.
Because I thought, well, work at the big plant, you're going to learn more, you're going to have a better opportunity to go to a new plant. So that's why I came to Petersburg. And as you know, it didn't work out as far as building the power plant, which I'm just tickled to death with for my own personal gain. I just love it down here, and I'm glad I raised my family down here. But when I came back down, I was an engineer for just a short time, and then I got fortunate. They put me under Gary in maintenance. That was the first time they'd really had an engineer in maintenance. Yeah. And I mean, I owed my whole career to this guy.
He was a good engineer. I had several of them, but he came in on his own time just to learn about stuff. If we was going to tear a pump down, he said, can I come and see that come apart? Well, yeah. I said, I can't pay you, but come anytime you want. Because at that time, we weren't paying any overtime. I mean, I worked a lot of hours and didn't get any overtime money at all. 12 hours a day. I'd split my crew in two 12-hour shifts, and I'd work 12 hours and overlap in the second one. Because when the unit went down, you worked 24 hours a day to get it back on the line.
Yeah, at that time, exempt employees didn't get overtime. It was just whatever your salary was for the straight 40 hours a week. But anyway, I was very fortunate in the fact, and then Gary, like I said, he transferred over to the engineering department out of Indianapolis, but was stationed at Petersburg. That's when we were building Petersburg 3.
Yeah.
And why they did it, they made me supervisor of maintenance.
Marge and I actually went down to Madison and looked at some houses.
That's where you thought you were going to be.
Yeah, down Switzerland County. We went down a little town right on the river. Mm-hmm. We talked to a couple of realtors down there.
About where Vivi is?
Yeah, Vivi.
Yeah. Kind of an amusing story. When I told my grandmother, she was probably in her late 80s at that time, I said, well, I'm going to go to Petersburg. She said, boy, that's an awful long way away. She said, that's warm all year round down there. And I said, not St. Petersburg. I'm not quite that far. So, yeah, it's been a trip, and it's a good trip. When we first started, and when I got down here, I think, we had 2 mechanical maintenance foremen and 1 electrical at that time.
Yeah, we had
Earl Garton and Bob Shane and Marvin Fox.
Earl Garton, Bob Shane, and Marvin Fox.
Yeah, and that was a close to my group. I think that when I came, it was probably somewhere in the 60s total plant personnel. Yeah.
Earl Garton was a real good friend of Bob Riedl's. But Bob Riedl's wife and Earl Garton's wife, they were neighbors in Martinsville. Earl Garton wasn't my pick for electrical foreman, but Riedl picked him.
Well, he was obviously good at what he did. And Nola worked for you at one point, didn't she?
Nola worked for
she was a secretary.
She was the second secretary we hired.
So this nepotism rule, Your mom was working for IPL.
Yeah, she was in Indianapolis. Well, they kind of changed that. You couldn't be at the same location or in the same work group. She worked in Indianapolis at the electric building, and she wasn't even in electric production.
She was a personal secretary for the vice president I worked for.
All right.
She went back to work after my dad died. My dad died when I was a senior in high school.
So that was 67,
It was 65.
Your dad had cancer, didn't he?
Yeah.
I thought that's right. He's the first guy. He had a tracheotomy. He had to hold his hand over hold his throat to talk.
So you're talking about this onslaught and 60 people at this total plant. What has been our highest number of employees? It was plus the contractors.
Well, we had 120 employees at one time.
Well, when I was manager there towards the end, we were up a little over 300.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And then you probably had that many contractors coming in, didn't you?
Well, on an outage, yeah. We didn't use contractors on a daily basis as such. We maybe had 4 or 5. But when we'd have an outage, you just didn't have enough people. We'd bring people down from Indianapolis, our people from the other plants, foremen. We'd bring 3 or 4 crews down. And then like you say, we might have, depending on the outage, 150 to 300 outside contractors.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'd fill the town motel up with people.
Plus.
Yeah. Oh, we had them all over this area. They were in Vincennes, Jasper,
Washington.
Washington. Of course, we had 2 motels at that time. This one up here at this end and the one down here. Now, when you guys first started, what was the rule when you hired people that they had to be within so close to the plant?
Had to be within 20 miles of the plant.
See, that changed, but I know when I came, that was the deal. You had to live within about 20 miles of the plant. So if you got called and it was an emergency, you could get in here.
You can respond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bringing all these families in, it worked out okay, didn't it?
It worked out fine. I mean,
Pike County accepted them. They accepted Pike County, and it was.
Some of them did.
This program is sponsored in part by the Log Inns Farm, Bed, and Breakfast, just 3 miles west of Petersburg off of State Road 56. It's peaceful, quiet, and you're surrounded by nature in a traditional farm environment. It's nestled in the countryside of a southern Indiana working farm growing grain, hay, and livestock. It incorporates 2 vintage log cabins. Call the Log Inns Farm Bed and Breakfast at 812-354-2192. Recently, the real estate market has been unpredictable, but the sun is shining, spring has sprung, and at Harris Real Estate, we have clients looking for homes and properties to buy and sell. Let us help you. Real estate is local. We are local. We know the business. We know the community. Harris Real Estate has listed and sold hundreds of properties right here. We know Pike County. Harris Real Estate, 812-380-1065. Spring is here and it's time to get winter off of your vehicle. When you wash your vehicle on a regular basis, there are many advantages. You're easier to see, you preserve the life of your vehicle, help maintain its value, enhances vision, and it just looks better. And washing with a wand, you can get into those crevices underneath, brush with a soft bristle brush, and then hose it off. Stop by Petersburg Car Wash today, 401 South 9th Street, Petersburg. Keep it clean.
Going back to the beginning real quick, you've probably never heard this story. You know, you ask why they built a plant down there because of the coal, basically, and there was a river. But the motto at Petersburg was the train never stops. Remember that?
Yeah.
It was the first remote-controlled engine, and we had the cars would unload automatically, and that was the big commercial thing they showed. The train never stops at Petersburg.
Wow.
Yeah,
And then we had the coal cars with Reddy Kilowatt painted on them.
yeah. I'm sure you probably don't remember though. Our
do
coal
not.
cars were painted yellow, and the old Reddy Kilowatt, the little electrical guy, he was on there. Yeah.
We at one time, about the time that you were plant manager, we were producing about 70% of Indianapolis's of IPNL's
That's
electricity.
probably about right. We were about 1,690 megawatts at that time before we started upgrading our turbines, and we got a little more out of them. But yeah,
I wonder where we are now.
Well, see,
they've only got 2 units now. One and two are shut down.
Martinsville had 6 units. At one time, I saw that whole plant making 200 megawatts, and it was humming and making all kinds of noise.
Yeah.
It was really. We didn't like to run that hard with everything. We had everything full production.
So this is off the subject, but we're switching away from coal. We're going to move to gas and solar. How do you two see that working in the future?
You can't put enough solar panels in to replace all those units out there.
Gas,
Is hot.
gas. You can run these big boilers on gas. It'll be the same as using coal.
Well, see, there's a 24-inch gas main pipeline goes through the property out there. High pressure pipeline goes right through the property.
Gas?
I dug it up once. The gas company wasn't very happy.
I bet. You didn't call holy moly, did you?
See what gas will do. They're converting Unit 3, I believe, now to gas.
Right.
What gas will do, you get rid of your whole coal handling system. No coal yard, no trains, no equipment, no people to manage it. You get rid of your ash handling systems. Okay? Your bottom ash and your top ash. People have to operate those. You don't need those people. You go from 300 and some people. I'm not with the gas right now, but I've heard numbers. They're going to be down under 100 for the whole plant.
Wow. From 300 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I left in 2001 when AES purchased them, and we were those numbers at that time.
Before you two came in, I just made some notes of some of the early people that I knew when I moved here that were still here. Had Harry Bales. What was Harry's job?
Harry was a shift supervisor when
Well,
I
he came down here as a shift supervisor. Then he was supervisor of operations
when he retired.
He was a utility operator in Martinsville. He lived south of Martinsville. We got several people from Martinsville because Riedel knew them all from working in Martinsville.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the majority of the people came from Martinsville.
No, we
got some from Stout, got some from Perry K.
Well, we had Roy Bannister came from Perry K, and so did Kenny Wells.
Kenny Wells came from K. They came as shift supervisors, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Lee Halbert,
Lee Halbert came from Martinsville.
He was Martinsville.
Garden was in Martinsville.
George Aker.
Fox was in Martinsville. George Aker was in Martinsville.
George Aker, that was a little before my time.
George Aker, he came as supervisor of operations.
Yeah,
did
he came
not?
down supervisor of operation. Mm-hmm. He and I shared an office when he first started.
How long was he here?
Till he died.
Yeah,
he retired.
George was older when he came. I'm not sure.
George was a shift supervisor at Martinsville. Yeah. Lived in the little town of Brooklyn.
Well, it's sure been a great experience, the merger of Pike County and IP&L. It's just grown together. IPL to me is synonymous with Petersburg.
I totally agree, yeah.
And look at all of the families that the IPL people have brought in to raise the next generations.
Yeah, they've integrated with one another, the IPL families, their kids and grandkids, plus people that originally lived here in Pike County.
Well, see, more than half the houses in Eastwood were all IP&L people. Rita lived there, Paul Kohler lived there, Earl Garden lived there, Harry Bales lived there.
Your buddy Bud was in my house.
Who?
Lee Halbert was your house, wasn't he?
Okay.
Lee Halbert was in the big house right behind Rex, and then Rex Hoppus built that house where he lives.
I thought you had told me once Bud Watson lived there.
Bud did.
Bud lived in...
The one I'm in.
No, he lived in the one that... the one you're in.
Yeah. I think Bud bought it probably after Lee Halbert.
Oh, he bought it from...
No, who was? Somebody else had it.
Somebody else had it.
Wasn't somebody from the power plant, though, I don't think.
Well, I think he'd worked at the power plant one time.
I'm not sure.
Rodger, you were on a statement, and I don't think we ever completed it. I kind of squirrel around sometimes. I'm told that a lot, but we were talking about the gas is going to be pretty sufficient fuel for that power plant. But you were getting ready to talk the solar. How does the solar integrate with that?
I'm not a fan of solar. For the first reason, I don't like all the farmland it's taken. I don't believe in that. If you're going to have solar, you go out and put it on some wasted land that you can't produce anything else on. Now that's just me. I'm not speaking for anybody else. But solar is such a minute part of generation. It's these coal and gas, nuclear. Those are your big guys.
Solar don't work when the sun don't shine.
Right. Or there's ice on it, or there's snow on it.
Pardon me?
Or if there's snow or ice on it.
Or nighttime.
We saw that in Texas.
Or cloudy days. Yeah.
So why, talk me through this, and we're just guessing, but why have we taken such a push towards solar for now? Is it just the politics of it?
It's the pollution deal. This power plant out here was a very clean. It was one of the first. I think Unit 3 was probably one of the first units in Indiana that had a scrubber on it.
Right.
Was that 90? That was later, wasn't it?
Yes.
No, Unit 3 was built with a scrubber. It came on in 77. Okay. It had a scrubber from get-go. Unit 4 had a scrubber from get-go. And then we added scrubbers to 1 and 2 in about 82, I believe, or 86. So that plant was scrubbed. And then after I retired, I think they put SCRs on 1 and 2 unit, I believe.
And you retired in 2000?
2001.
When did you retire? About that same time?
98.
Okay. Well, will we ever go back to coal?
I highly doubt it. Probably the thing of the future will be, the continued gas, and they're getting into these small nuclears. I think we're going to see a lot of that.
That small nuclear is what I keep hearing.
Small nuclear plants, yeah. Yeah, Europe's got a ton of them right now. And they've got backup systems and backup systems and backup systems. They're safe. I mean, their backup systems are so redundant. They tell you if something's going wrong, it's not where you're dependent on 1 or 2 devices. There may be 3, and you're monitoring all 3 of those devices at one time. And if any one of them looks quirky, you shut her down or take action.
I wouldn't toured Marble Hill when they was building it. It was going to be nuclear.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
They were building their containment vessel for the reactor when I was down there. I don't think they ever finished that.
I don't think so either. That was late 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they shut it down. We actually bought some equipment from there. I don't remember what all it was, but it was, some stuff. Whether it's a nuclear plant or a coal-fired plant or a gas-fired, a lot of the equipment's the same thing. You've got your same pumps, that's pumping and things like that. So that's the difference between a boiler. You've got a boiler that's burning coal, or you've got a reactor.
So, looking at this plant, gas is going to sustain us for quite a while, shouldn't it?
I would hope so. There again, Gary and I are out of it since they started doing that. So we're probably the wrong people to ask about that. I would hope there's been enough thought process made that yes, we see this going out in the future. But the reason they're going to gas, it's cleaner. You don't have to have the scrubbers. You don't
The
have
manpower, the employees.
You don't have to have the employees.
No coal handling system, and
No coal handling.
that's a big buck keeping a coal handling system running.
Yeah.
Gary, you turned 90 earlier this year, wasn't it?
November. I'll be 91
last year.
Yeah, I'll be 91 this coming November.
So describe this whole experience that you've had moving from Lyons, going to school, and then being placed in Petersburg.
Well, my whole experience was I was one of the first students from Lyons High School to go to Rose-Hulman. And I wouldn't have got in there if it hadn't been for high school principal that phoned some math credit hours for me.
He doctored some math credit hours?
Oh, yeah. I took every math class they offered, and then I had to take solid geometry for non-credit when I got up there. And he gave me credit for half a semester of algebra because after I graduated, I didn't get in college the first year. And I went back and took an advanced algebra class with some seniors that was taking a correspondence from Minneapolis State. And he gave me credit. He gave me credit at Rose for another half semester of algebra. They gave me enough math to get in Rose.
But did they even have algebra at Lyons?
Yeah, but just one semester, and didn't have. I took plain geometry. Didn't have solid geometry. Didn't have trigonometry. I had to take all that stuff for non-credit when I got to Rose, because I took every math class they offered, and got A's in all of them. But that wasn't enough to get me in Rose.
So you moved down here. You raised your family. It was a great career, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. It was, like I said, like I told you, I really owe it to my dad because I had a job offer from Marathon Oil, one from Public Service Indiana, and one from someplace else, Crane, which didn't pay anything. And he said, you better go to Petersburg because they're going to build a power plant, big power plant down there. He said, you better go to IP&L because they're going to build a big power plant in Petersburg. And that's just 40 miles from my home.
And you were both very active in the community. Gee, you were on the city council 20 years, I bet.
12 years.
12 years.
I was running for political office twice. Then I was chairman of the council of the Methodist Church and trustee. And I was involved in building that new church in '92 there at the Methodist Church.
Okay. Fellas, what else do we need to talk about in reference to IP&L and Pike County, Indiana?
Well, I think IPL and even AES, they've been a good corporate sponsor and stewardship in the community. I remember Little League back when I was supervisor of maintenance. I think IPL furnished the first light poles down there. There wasn't any lights or anything, and
We furnished all the power poles for the Little League
we furnished,
ballpark.
I think, most everything since. After the tornado, we were instrumental. I had just been manager for,
A year?
no, about a month and a half.
Chuck Ashwood, who was the vice president your mother worked for, he was involved in getting them light poles down here.
Yeah.
Chuck Ashwood was
And
Cy Ashley's uncle.
we had the tornado.
We always kid Chuck. I actually got kidded a lot about Uncle Chuck getting him a job. And he hated that.
Well, and Cy was president of our park board at the time, and IPNL moved a house in for the caretaker.
Yeah, we actually, honestly, we gave him that house. That was under my watch,
Well,
and
thanks.
we gave him the house. Yeah,
Well, it's sure been a good marriage between IPL and you mentioned AES. I put it all under the same umbrella. I should say
Well, it's-
AES more than I do, but
You had to know people. AES had different kind of people. The plant manager that Rodger worked for AES, well, you took his job, I think, eventually. What was his name? The first plant manager for
yeah, it
AES.
was Mark something or other. I don't remember what his last name
Anyhow,
was.
he asked me to give a talk to the IPL group over at Washington one night. I gave the talk, and he complimented that night about how good a job I did, and he didn't believe I knew that much about the power plant. And then the next day, he came in Friends Restaurant to eat and didn't even speak to me. That's the kind of people they were.
well, fellas, I sure appreciate you coming in and giving us a little bit of history. Anything else we need to talk about?
Not that I'm aware of. How about you, Gary?
One thing you see that cross on the Methodist church?
Yes.
That's Inconel steel. That's the steel that the tanks are lined with out the power plant.
Wow.
Jim Gaskins made a carbon steel cross when we built that steeple. And he said, can you send it down to Sterling Boiler and get it clad in stainless steel? And I said, yeah, I can. Because I did a lot of work with Sterling, did a lot of work for us out the power. And I sent it down there and they called me and said, we can make it out of solid Inconel. That's high nickel stainless alloy. It'll never rust. It's as bright today as the day it was put up there.
Wow.
But that just goes to show a company like Indianapolis Power and Light, and they choose good vendors. That same vendor, I'm not going to say who it was, that same vendor made the cross back when we bought, I was on the board when we started the golf course. That same vendor was pretty instrumental in a lot of the things that happened out there. And the Price Creek Golf Course sign across the top, they furnished that. But that's when you've got good vendors that mate with you and you choose good vendors. That's the kind of things that help. And that vendor is not from this community. He actually is from Vanderburgh County. Yeah. So
But they're all working
they
together
all
for the
work
same
together
cause.
in support of the community, because Indianapolis Power and Light built a power plant here.
We had some really good contractors.
Yeah, and after that tornado, so many of your people were
Oh yeah.
helping.
Yeah, and remember, right before the tornado, we had the problem with the pumps, the floods.
Yes.
We hauled water. We shut stuff down, hauled water to the water tower. Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing.
We were in a temporary pipeline from the power plant to the water tower.
I
I
remember.
remember during the tornado when we sent all the trucks in, we pretty much kept a tire repair guy here for repairing all the tires. I mean, we had 3 or 4 tires every day, on the big equipment.
So many people forget that 2 weeks to the day prior to the tornado, we had our first federal disaster. We were declared a federal disaster. FEMA came in here, and you guys helped get that water line, that temporary water line built from Hoosier Energy to
That was a heck of a year.
to the water tower.
Heck of a year.
Yep.
See, you weren't married yet then, were you?
No, I was a reporter.
Jack Kinman was mayor then.
He was.
He was the mayor during a tornado.
Yeah, I was covering
Well,
news
then-
for WFPC.
Then somewhere along there, Bob Riddle was a temporary mayor.
Bob, right immediately after the tornado and Jack's house was destroyed, his neighborhood was destroyed. He had some heart issues, was put in the hospital, and Bob had just retired,
Bob had just retired.
and you had taken over. And thank goodness for Bob coming in as deputy mayor, and he was a great asset to this community during that time of disaster.
Bob Riddle was a very intelligent man. He got the engineering degree from Purdue, but he was very intelligent. And he never got mad at me all the time I worked for him until he retired.
Why did he get mad? I can think of, there
Well-
were many reasons. Oh, gentlemen, I so appreciate you coming in today.
Glad to do it, Randy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks for joining us for this program of WFPC Podcasting. The program is brought to you by Hathaway Excavating and Rock Yard, Schultz Eye Care, the Log Ends Farm Bed and Breakfast, the Destin Schneer Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance Agency, Harris Real Estate, and Petersburg Car Wash. Please thank our sponsors for their continued investment in Pike County. A new program appears each Friday on WFPC Podcasting, exploring the people, information, and the news right here in Pike County. See you next week.
Thanks for watching WFPC Podcasting, your local source for the heart and history of Pike County, Indiana. From backroads to town centers, we bring you the voices, stories, and news that shape our community. Join us on this journey through the past, present, and future of Pike County, Indiana. Tune in next week for the next episode of WFPC Podcasting.